The death toll from Guyana's suicide phenomenon is rising. Previous research has shown that members of a particular ethnic group and members of a specific region were most likely to commit suicide. But recently, newspaper reports have indicated that this deadly phenomenon has certainly seeped into other sections of society. But regardless of which part of our country suicide occurs the most, we can all agree on one fact. And that fact is suicide will only do harm for Guyana as a nation, and it must be immediately nipped in the bud. We begin with sentiments from Joe Lachminarayan, who has done work in various regions through a religious grouping. So far, I know that you're doing some volunteer work in terms of addressing the suicide phenomenon in our nation. But what is is there a concern? And I know that you're also working out of Mabaruma. What is your major concern in terms of what you're seeing as it's related to the suicide phenomenon? Is it a case that it's on the increase? Do we have it under control? What are your findings thus far?
The the issue of suicide, and I can speak for the sub-region, the Mabroma sub-region in Region 1, because I live there and work there. And but the incidence of attempted suicide, it fluctuates as the months go by. And we have, every month we have many cases that keep popping up, and some are reported to us, and we're asked to act on it, that sort of thing. So it is a challenge for us, because suicide is everybody's business, and the influence that it gives in terms of how persons deal with their situations and problems and so on. We have a situation where um, I haven't come across a case where anyone over 30 has attempted suicide in the past few years in the Mabruma sub-region. All of these persons are under 30, and more than half being of school age.
I mean, I know this is like asking you to read minds, but it's interesting that you say that they're not over 30, the people who attempt or actually commit suicide. What kind of conditions do you have in the region? If I dare say or dare wonder if it is maybe the conditions that they're living under that probably push them to that. Do you see it as a case in terms of the living standards pushing them to that?
No, I really don't think so. I really don't think so. It has to do with your mindset and how you go about your problem solving. It's no different. The conditions there are no different from what you have in Georgetown, and a lot of the cases what we find is that you have family and relationship problems, and those are main stress factors in persons wanting to commit suicide and committing suicide. And so there's a breakdown in the family, there's a breakdown in relationships, and that is contributing to this thing a whole lot.
Let's talk about the challenge that you may experience because this is quite a big job that you've taken on. What are some of the challenges that you faced thus far in trying to put it out there and ensure that we have solutions in terms of dealing with the suicide phenomenon?
Let me give you an example of what's happening right now. And someone spoke to me and said, we have a case in the Wauna area, and we need your assistance. And subsequently, I spoke to someone on the phone, and at the end of it, I felt good that we would have done something. And what I didn't know was that the incident that the person was referring to was another incident, where a student of a school there was sending suicide notes. So when I thought that we had addressed the issue, we were talking about two separate issues, and I'm talking about right now. And so the other issue work still has to be done on the other one with the student. And I mean, the intervention program, you know, that's got to go on. I mean, that should be a priority. But I'm here in Georgetown for a few days, and we have, out of the group of 9 persons who were trained in the prevention and intervention program, you only have like about 3, the most 4 persons who are still active. Remember, we do this on a volunteer basis, and so we take of our resources and our time and go and reach these persons. But in terms of the school's welfare department does some, but they have way beyond their capacity. You have a lone person in the school's welfare section in Mabromo to look over students' welfare, teachers' welfare, and schools' welfare in general, and then to also now add mental health issues, which suicide comes under, to that person's portfolio. It's really just too much for one person to handle. And so this whole thing, there isn't that system in place. When you have someone with the ideation, they want to commit suicide, they have all of these stressors in their lives, and you know, they're looking for that way out. And because, you know, the influence and the examples that others have said that this is a way out, suicide, you know, they're wanting to do that. But and they go about now sending notes and telling persons and so on of what they plan to do. Those persons, on many occasions, they don't do anything with that information. They don't pass it on. They don't ask for help. In a lot of cases, they don't know who to ask for help. And so we've had cases where persons had committed suicide because the persons that they told did nothing. They did not act on the information. And so there isn't that referral system of persons coming and saying, this is a problem, we'd like for you to come and deal with it. And even for us who are still volunteering and still working, when we come across cases, we used to run it by the counselor from Georgetown, who trained us. And we would run the cases by him, make sure we are going in the right direction, we're not overlooking anything. And you know, all in all, we felt good, but that person is no longer there, and we are continuing to work, but we have no one to refer.
Working based on your training.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Would you like to, because I'm thinking too, you may eventually need more people, more human resource to help you with this, but in the meantime, would you like to, is there a call that you'd like to put out maybe to the Ministry of Health and other health officials in terms of helping you address this problem, not only in your region, but I figure eventually you'll be able to lend some of your expertise to other parts of Guyana where, you know, we see the rise of deaths from suicide?
We read in the papers of robberies and accidents and killings and so on. And you know, when we think of Mabromo, it's not persons, you know, hurting other people. We had the case of a schoolgirl who was murdered, and then her friend then committed suicide. A few days ago, we had a young man committing suicide, and then his friend attempting suicide. Here is a case where Mabromo makes the news because persons are not hurting other persons, they are hurting themselves. And we don't have the system in place to really deal with this. We felt very happy when the Ministry of Health came on board in 2011. And, you know, we had a system in place. But because because no follow-up was done. Um, they did not give the necessary assistance to the persons who volunteered. There is there's basically just a few persons working on their own in the community to do as much as they're able to do, and the trend goes on of persons committing suicide and hurting themselves and hurting others in the process. And all in all, setting that bad example for others to follow of this is how to deal with your problems. I believe we all need to work on this, put systems in place. The we need the assistance of the Ministry of Health, Mental Health Unit. We need the assistance of the Ministry of Education and the school welfare department and so on. We need others to get on board and put more resources into this thing, and let us change the way young people are reacting to these stressful situations in their lives. We need to show them and go out and reach out to them and let them know that if you're having problems, there is a way that you can deal with it. There are persons you can talk to. This is how you go about dealing with your problems. There will always be challenges, but the way we deal with it is crucially important. And so we need for these persons to get on board and assist us in what we're trying to do.
And now we hear from local psychiatrist Dr. Frank Beckles. The majority of the cases from, in terms of suicide, we saw it from regions 2, 6, and of course this was more than a decade ago. Is that still the case, or is it now widespread? Is it in other parts of our country?
It is still broadly spread. And it is everywhere, but not to the same. I think that essentially the pattern is the same. Highest amongst the Hindu population and lowest in the mixed race.